Will Smith hits at Chris Rock as Rock spoke on stage during the 94th Academy Awards in Hollywood, March 27. Reuters. Brian Snyder. An aerial view shows a residential building destroyed by shelling, as Russia's invasion of Ukraine continues, in the settlement of Borodyanka in the Kyiv region, Ukraine, March 3. Reuters. Maxim Levin. A man carries a dog as people flee, amid Russia's invasion of Ukraine, in Irpin, Ukraine, March 9. Reuters. Maxim Levin. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky poses after an interview with Reuters in Kyiv, Ukraine, March 1. Reuters. Umit Bektis. A firefighter works at a residential district that was damaged by shelling in Kyiv, Ukraine, March 23. Reuters. Marco Eureka. Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson wipes away tears as she listens to Senator Cory Booker, DNJ, speak on the third day of her U.S. Senate Judiciary Committee confirmation hearings on her nomination to the Supreme Court, on Capitol Hill in Washington, March 23. Reuters. Elizabeth France. People hold flares with the colors of the Ukrainian flag as Ukrainians and supporters hold an anti-war protest outside the Russian embassy, following Russia's invasion of Ukraine, in Mexico City, Mexico, February 28. Reuters. Luis Cortez. Rescue workers stand in a silent tribute at the site to mourn the victims of a China Eastern Airlines Boeing 737-800 plane, Flight MU-5735, that crashed in Huazhuo, Guangxi Zhuang Autonomous Region, China, March 27. Photo via Reuters. Ultra-Orthodox Jewish men gather to watch the funeral procession of prominent Rabbi Chaim Kanievsky, who died at 94, in Bnei Brak, near Tel Aviv, Israel, March 20. Reuters. Near Elias. A man covered in colored powder shakes his head during holy celebrations in Ahmedabad, India, March 17. Reuters. Amit Dev. A Ukrainian soldier hides from a helicopter airstrike amid Russia's invasion of Ukraine, near Demidov, Ukraine, March 10. Reuters. Maxim Levin. Prince William, Duke of Cambridge, and Catherine, Duchess of Cambridge meet the Jamaica national bobsleigh team during a visit to Trench Town, the birthplace of reggae music, on day 4 of their Platinum Jubilee Royal Tour of the Caribbean, in Kingston, Jamaica, March 22. Chris Jackson Poole. Members of the Ukrainian Territorial Defense Forces check a man while on patrol during a curfew in Kyiv, Ukraine, March 22. Reuters. Gleb Garanich. Children look out from an evacuation train from Kyiv to Lviv as they say goodbye to their father at Kyiv Central train station in central Kyiv, Ukraine, March 3. Reuters. Gleb Garanich. Bodyguards surround former South Korean President Park Geun-hye as an unidentified man throws a glass bottle, not pictured, at her, in front of her home in Daegu, South Korea, March 24. Yonhap via Reuters. U.S. Representative Lauren Boebert, RCO, and Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, RGA, scream, "Build a wall," at President Joe Biden during Biden's State of the Union address to a joint session of the U.S. Congress at the Capitol in Washington, March 1. Reuters. Evelyn Hochstein Poole. A Russian and a Ukrainian embrace each other as Russians wait for humanitarian visas, amid the ongoing Russian invasion of Ukraine, at the San Isidro port of entry of the U.S.-Mexico border in Tijuana, Mexico, March 18. Reuters. Jorge Duniz. Stella Morris, the partner of WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange, is photographed in her Vivienne Westwood design wedding dress before driving to Belmarsh prison, where she is due to marry Julian Assange, at a hotel in London, Britain, March 23. Reuters. Dylan Martinez Pool. Sunset is reflected in the Salton Sea as seen from Bombay Beach, California, March 15. Reuters. David Swanson. A civilian trains to throw Molotov cocktails to defend the city, as Russia's invasion of Ukraine continues, in Zhytomyr, Ukraine, March 1. Reuters. Vyacheslav Ratinsky. A girl sleeps on the lap of her brother as they wait for their transfer, after fleeing the ongoing Russian invasion of Ukraine, outside the main train station in Lviv, Ukraine, March 14. Reuters. Kai Pfaffenbach. Olga hugs her boyfriend Vladimir as they say goodbye prior to Volodymyr's deployment closer to the front line, at the train station in Lviv, Ukraine, March 9. Reuters. Kai Pfaffenbach. Sensitive material. This image may offend or disturb. A man mourns next to the body of his mother, who was killed when an intercepted missile hit a residential building, in Kyiv, Ukraine, March 17. Reuters. Thomas Peter. A teardrop rolls down a young woman's cheek aboard a bus after fleeing from Ukraine to Romania, at the border crossing in Siret, Romania, March 16. Reuters. Clodagh Kilcoyne. Best Supporting Actress winner Ariana DeBose poses with her Oscar in the photo room during the 94th Academy Awards in Hollywood, March 27. Reuters. Mario Angiolini. Supporters of Prince Misuzu Lukaszwilithini gather at the High Court in Pietermaritzburg, where the judge ruled that the prince is the rightful heir to the Zulu throne and his coronation can be conducted in Pietermaritzburg, South Africa, March 2. Reuters. Rogan Ward. Marlee Matlin and cast of Coda receives the award for Outstanding Performance by a Cast in a Motion Picture for Coda at the 28th Screen Actors Guild Awards in Santa Monica, California, February 27. Reuters. Mario Angiolini. Patients sleep at a makeshift coronavirus disease treatment area outside a hospital in Hong Kong, March 1. Reuters. Tyrone Sue. A delivery worker passes food to a woman over the barriers of an area under lockdown amid the coronavirus outbreak in Shanghai, China, March 23. Reuters. Ailey Song. Local residents sit on a bench near an apartment building destroyed in the besieged southern port city of Mariupol, Ukraine, March 25. Reuters. Alexander Ermoshenko. Romendo, an asylum-seeking migrant from Peru, plays a hand-clapping game with his daughter Alexa, 7, as they stand in line waiting to be processed after wading across the Rio Grande River into the United States from Mexico, in Roma, Texas, February 28. Reuters. Idris Latif. Buddhist monks walk over smoldering coals with barefoot at the fire walking festival, called Hiwatari Matsuri in Japanese, at Mt. Takao in Tokyo, Japan, March 13. About 1,500 Japanese worshippers walk barefoot with Buddhist monks over coals at the annual festival, praying for the safety of themselves to overcome the coronavirus pandemic and for peace in the world, according to organizers. Reuters. Kim Kyung-hoon. Demonstrators scuffle with riot police as they march to Taksim Square to mark International Women's Day in Istanbul, Turkey, March 8. Reuters. Kamal Aslan. A person wearing a protective mask crosses a bridge as Storm Celia blew sand from the Sahara Desert over Madrid, Spain, March 15. Reuters. Susanna Vera. Hindu devotees take part in the religious festival of Holi inside a temple in Nangaon village, in the state of Uttar Pradesh, India, March 12. Reuters. Adnan Abidi. A car lies overturned among debris in the Arabi neighborhood after a large tornado struck New Orleans, Louisiana, March 22. Reuters. Kathleen Flynn. A child looks at the helmet of a 501st Legion clone trooper on display at The Fans Strike Back, the largest Star Wars fan exhibition in New York City, March 24. Reuters. Andrew Kelly. Sand begins to surround houses close to the town of Ambovoom, Androy region, Madagascar. The country has always known extreme weather events, but scientists say these will likely increase as human-induced climate change pushes temperatures higher. 4 years of drought, along with deforestation caused by people burning or cutting down trees to make charcoal or to open up land for farming, have transformed the area into a dust bowl. Picture taken February 15, 2022. Reuters. Alkis Konstantinides. A protester tries to push away a ladder being used by police officers as they attempt to enter a building next to the mansion reportedly belonging to Russian billionaire Oleg Deripaska, who was placed on Britain's sanctions list last week, as squatters occupy it, in London, Britain, March 14. Reuters. Peter Nichols. A woman with face paint attends a celebration during a meeting where leaders from indigenous communities in the Amazon basin demanded South American governments halt extractive industries that damage the rainforest, in Pueo, Ecuador, March 15. Reuters. Johanna Alarcon. Local residents look for cover as they escape from the town of Irpin, after heavy shelling on the only escape route used by locals, while Russian troops advance towards the capital of Kyiv, in Irpin, near Kyiv, Ukraine. March 6. Reuters. Carlos Barria. Civilians who volunteered to join the Territorial Defense Forces train on weapons in Odessa, Ukraine, March 11. Reuters. Alexandros Avramidis. A woman reacts in front of a residential building which was damaged in the separatist-controlled town of Volnovakha in the Donetsk region, Ukraine, March 11. Reuters. Alexander Ermoshenko. Oleksiy Baragrovy, a musician of the Kyiv Classic Symphony Orchestra, performs for journalists and people after an open-air concert named Free Sky at the Independence Square in central Kyiv, March 9. Reuters. Gleb Garanich. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky delivers a video address to senators and members of the House of Representatives gathered in the Capitol Visitor Center Congressional Auditorium, at the U.S. Capitol in Washington, March 16. J. Scott Applewhite-Poole. A man shouts against President Gotabaya Rajapaksa as people block the main road in front of the president's secretariat during a protest against the worsening economic crisis that has brought fuel shortages and spiraling food prices in Colombo, Sri Lanka, March 15. Reuters. Dinupali Inawat. Refugees evacuated on a train from Kyiv wait for transfer to Poland outside the train station in Lviv, Ukraine, March 7. Reuters. Kai Pfaffenbach. Ukrainian soldiers walk past a monument of the city founder Duke de Richelieu, covered with sandbags for protection, in Odessa, Ukraine, March 10. Reuters. Alexandros Avramidis. A woman walks with a bicycle next to a damaged building in the separatist-controlled town of Volnovakha in the Donetsk region, Ukraine, March 15. Reuters. Alexander Ermoshenko. A man helps an elderly woman to run for cover after heavy shelling on the only escape route used by locals, in Irpin, near Kyiv, March 6. Reuters. Carlos Barria. The American Falls and Bridal Veil Falls are lit in the colors of the Ukrainian flag, following the Russian invasion in Ukraine, as seen from Niagara Falls, Ontario, Canada. February 27. Reuters. Nick Iwanishin. U.S. President Joe Biden takes a selfie with U.S. Army soldiers assigned to the 82nd Airborne Division at the G2 Arena in Jajanka, near Rzeszów, Poland, March 25. Reuters. Evelyn Hochstein. A Ukrainian woman and her family sit in a taxi with the colors of the Ukrainian flag upon arriving in Madrid with a group of Spanish taxi drivers who drove to Poland to support the mass evacuation of refugees. In Madrid, Spain, March 17. Reuters. Susanna Vera. Scott Minair of Britain in action during the para cross-country skiing, men's long-distance sitting at the Beijing 2022 Winter Paralympic Games, March 6. Reuters. Issei Kato. Best Actress Jessica Chastain waits to have her Oscar engraved for The Eyes of Tammy Faye at the Governor's Ball following the 94th Academy Awards in Los Angeles, March 27. Reuters. Mike Blake. The sun sets behind Wat Saket Temple, or Golden Mount in Bangkok, Thailand, March 15. Reuters. At Hit Parawang Meva. Mikhailo, 8, who was taken away from his widowed mother in the region of Lviv along with his 9-year-old brother and 16-year-old sister, plays with a ball in the garden of a state shelter in Lviv, Ukraine, March 23. Reuters. Zora Ben-Semra. A young girl looks on near an installation of women's red shoes displayed on a staircase, as a symbol to denounce violence against women, in Tirana, Albania, March 8. Reuters. Florian Goga. Rival teams the UPARDS and DownARDS play during the annual Shrove Tuesday, No Rules Shrovetide football match in Ashbourne, Derbyshire, Britain, March 1. Reuters. Carl Racine. Singer Billie Eilish attends a premiere for the film, Turning Red at El Capitan Theater in Los Angeles, March 1. Reuters. Mario Angioni. People carry white flags as they cross the border between Bucha and Irpin next to a body lying on the street, amid Russia's invasion of Ukraine, in Irpin, Ukraine, March 11. Reuters. Serhiy Nuznenko. Ukrainian women from Kharkiv are reunited with their friend from Chernihiv after fleeing to Romania, following Russia's invasion of Ukraine, at the border crossing in Siret, Romania, March 22. Reuters. Clodagh Kilcoyne. A boy plays basketball with a plush toy inside the sports hall of a primary school, transformed into temporary accommodation for people fleeing the Russian invasion of Ukraine, in Przemysl, Poland, March 8. Reuters. Fabrizio Bench. A child sits on a swing in front of a damaged residential building, after Russia launched a massive military operation against Ukraine, in Kyiv, Ukraine, February 25. Reuters. Umit Bektas. A police officer says goodbye to his son as his family flees from advancing Russian troops as Russia's attack on Ukraine continues in the town of Irpin outside Kyiv, Ukraine, March 8. Reuters. Thomas Peter. Tracers are seen in the night sky as Ukrainian servicemen fire on the drone in Kyiv, Ukraine, March 14. Reuters. Gleb Garanich. A member of the Honor Guard holds a portrait of the member of the Ukrainian Armed Forces, Valery, who was killed during Russia's invasion of Ukraine, during a funeral ceremony in Kyiv, Ukraine, March 8. Reuters. Valentin Ogerenko. A blast is seen in the TV tower, amid Russia's invasion of Ukraine, in Kyiv, Ukraine, March 1. Reuters. Carlos Faria. People and medics help a wounded resident of a house destroyed by shelling in Kyiv, Ukraine, March 14. Reuters. Gleb Garanich. A man walks past a fire after a shelling in Kharkiv, Ukraine, March 25. Reuters. Oleg Pereverzev. Sensitive material. This image may offend or disturb. Dead bodies lie on the ground at the site of a bombing at a shopping center in Kyiv, Ukraine, March 21. Reuters. Marko Urica. Members of the Ukrainian Volunteer Corps fired with a howitzer at a position in Zaporizhzhia region, Ukraine, March 28. Reuters. Stanislav Yurchenko. Alexandra, 12, holds her sister Asya, 6, who cries as she waves at her mother Irina, while members of the Jewish community of Odessa board up positively Russia's invasion of Ukraine, in Odessa, Ukraine, March 7. Reuters. Alexandros Abramides. Sensitive material. This image may offend or disturb. Destroyed Russian military vehicles are seen on a street in the settlement of Borodyanka, in the Kyiv region, March 3. Reuters. Maxim Levin. Dima, a 3-year-old boy who was wounded during the shelling of Mariupol, lies in a bed in the children's ward of the hospital, in Zaporizhzhia, Ukraine, March 29. Reuters. Marko Urica. An injured serviceman looks out of an ambulance following an attack on the Yevrev military base, outside a hospital in Yevrev, Ukraine, March 13. Reuters. Kai Pfaffenbach. People wait below a destroyed bridge to cross a river as they flee from advancing Russian troops in the town of Irpin outside Kyiv, Ukraine, March 8. Reuters. Thomas Peter. People board an evacuation train from Kyiv to Lviv at Kyiv Central train station in Kyiv, Ukraine, March 4. Reuters. Gleb Garanich. Curtains flutter in the wind at a building that was damaged by shelling in a neighborhood that has been largely abandoned and left without water, gas and heating, in Kharkiv, Ukraine, March 28. Reuters. Thomas Peter. Ukrainian Paralympic Committee President Valery Sushkevich leads his contingent during the athletes' parade at the opening ceremony of the Beijing Winter Paralympic Games in Beijing, March 4. Reuters. Peter Czibora. 4-year-old Jackson Zoller excitedly hands family friend Elena Ozuna, 17, a doll while hunting for what he said was treasure in the remains of his neighbor's home, which was leveled by a tornado in Arabi, St. Bernard Parish, in the outskirts of New Orleans, Louisiana, March 24. The Zoller family's residence, situated directly across the street, was unharmed. Reuters. Idris Latif. A refugee child fleeing from Ukraine gestures when waiting for transport at Nugati station, after Russia launched a massive military operation against Ukraine, in Budapest, Hungary, February 28. Reuters. Martin Monews.